All right. Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. Breaking news. I wanted to share some information with you today about the meeting that just took place in Brussels between NATO and Russia. Why is that important for you to know? Because there's a lot of stuff going on. And the important things about it is just, it was just the day before, which was yesterday, the US held talks with NATO. Today was held the talks with Russia. Today was NATO and Russia, and tomorrow is going to be the OSCE, which is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Once again, why is this all important? Is because the talks between NATO and Russia today were inconclusive in Brussels. So apparently, and I'll say it straightforward, apparently NATO and the US are not taking seriously the strategic and security concerns of Russia. And this is why you're seeing this tit for tat with statements coming out of Brussels and Washington indicating that Russia is not willing to negotiate in a good faith. Come on, we all know it's a lie. Basically, because Russia has submitted the 8 talking points that they want NATO and the US to respond to. Among those 8 points, without going into more detail into this, there are 3 key points that they are very important. One of them has to do with the removal of nuclear weapons that the US has placed near the area around Ukraine. The second one has to do with NATO agreeing publicly to not admit Georgia and Ukraine into the alliance, the military alliance. And third one has to do with the protection of the minority of Russians in the Donbas area, which is part of where this issue is all about. So just to understand all this, where it's headed, once you start reading some headlines from some Western media, be they in London, Frankfurt, Paris, or Washington, or the US for that matter, you're going to hear a different conversation. And to NATO, this is what gives it raison d'être, like a life support of sorts. As I always argued, that NATO is becoming irrelevant. So, and now dragging this talk to even longer, so they can justify its existence per se. When we know NATO and the US are not willing to sort of understand what Russia's concerns are. Basically, with NATO is expanding eastward, getting closer to Russia's doorsteps, and Russia saying we won't have it. So I do believe personally, as I always argued, that for Russia, is going to react militarily if it has to. So, and that is the reason why I wanted to sort of provide you just a brief analysis, if you will, just to have an understanding of the dynamics that's taking place, because the comments or articles or analysis, whatever, coming out of Brussels and Washington is going to kind of manipulate the wording as to what this is all about. So the other side of the argument is that, especially with the new U.S. ambassador to NATO, Julian Smith, she's kind of like, her argument was that, well, the Russians are very aggressive and all that. Well, come on. Let's take a step back and be realistic about the statements, because they don't understand the core issues for why Russia is concerned about the expansion of NATO's forces eastward. The second argument to part of this is for the American audience. Most Americans, the majority, I shall not say, not all, but the majority do not understand that it's the U.S. It's the U.S. that is providing the support for NATO, financially speaking. In other words, we are the one providing over 70% of the budget for NATO. So why are we using our tax dollars in foreign land, countries that have no interest for us whatsoever? So, and this is part of what that argument, I'm sure you've been aware of what was taking place in Kazakhstan. That's another hot flashpoints that the West is pushing the narrative for, because basically what it came to was a failed coup, if I may use the term. So that is basically where those things are going. So understanding those dynamics, it will be more of shall we say, how I'm going to argue this one here, an understanding of where things are headed. So even though the former ambassador to NATO said that no, not the former rather, but Wendy Sherman, which is the deputy secretary of state, stated that we never promised Russia anything. So and I said, well, hold on a second, you are lying, because we did promise Russia after 1991, which means the disintegration of the Soviet Union, when James Baker, the former Secretary of State, stood in the Kremlin, and stated word for word that you can have my word that the West will not expand eastward 1 inch, and yet we went back on our word. So the other interesting thing that I want you guys to understand with this dynamics is where Europe stands, the EU per se. Well, Europe is more divided than ever. Okay, we're not going to read about it. We're not going to hear about it much in Western media. Why is they are concerned? Because they saw what happened in Afghanistan after the US exited from there and how chaotic that was. So the conversation inside the EU is that some countries are saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't want to get dragged into this conflict, because they know what the outcome is going to be. I mean, you're talking about if there is a hot war, shall we say, they're going to be in the first casualty of that conflict. And this is why some internal voices are saying, we don't want to be part of this. But they can't come openly and say it because Europe is toothless. Second is it can't stand on its feet. And third, it has to obey its masters. So that explains the reality of where Europe is. And that is why it is very, very important for you guys to understand those dynamics, as you might read some headlines tomorrow morning once they publish, media, mainstream publish its own newspapers and so forth. So you're going to be hearing some stuff. And so I'm here to provide you analysis to the best of my knowledge as I read it. I'll be tomorrow, I will be watching for the meeting between Russia and the OSCE, which is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. If you want my 2 cents on this, is nothing's going to materialize, And here is one interesting other factors, is that Ukraine itself right now is calling for finding a diplomatic solution to the problem. It's Ukraine calling this. Why is that? Well, they're calling for this because I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I believe they are coming to realize that NATO and the US is giving them a lip service. I'm sure they have learned from history what took place a couple of years ago with Georgia. Georgia was in the same position Ukraine is today. And back then, the president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili, was kind of saying, I am going to challenge Russia, whatever it is. He was pushed by NATO. And when Russia sent its military to Georgia and took over, within 3 days, they defeat the Georgian army, Saakashvili was shocked. Why NATO is not coming to help me? You got to be out of your mind. NATO is not going to put itself in danger against a nuclear Russia. And this is the mistake that Saakashvili made, not understanding the dynamics. Just being a president doesn't mean it makes you smart, but he did not understand the dynamics that were taking place at that time. And that was one of the issues that Saakashvili made. So I believe Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is realizing that. And he's calling more for finding a diplomatic solution to the problem. What's interesting also is that just yesterday, as the talks were held between the United States and Russia, Russia was conducting live military exercises with troops and live fire, live weapons, basically, just to send a message, live fire, live weapons, basically, just to send a message to the United States. And this is why I believe Russia will act militarily if NATO and the US cross that red line, which the Russians have described in those 8 talking points that the US and NATO have never responded to. US said they would like to take a week and get back to Russians about those talking points. NATO said they like to have the second round of talks with them. We all know what it means. If you compare these guys to what's taking place right now in Vienna with the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. How many rounds of talk right now? 8 rounds of talks. What has been achieved? Nothing. So they're basically just dragging the talk for no reason, because the US is not willing nor is wanting to find a solution to this. It's no different. That's what's taking place right now with Russia. However, the game with Russia is slightly different. Russia is not around. Who do we have to be concerned about? A country with over 6,000 nuclear warheads? It's Russia. So, and this is why I am realizing this is nothing but a hot air. What NATO is going to be saying, and what Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General for NATO, is going to be spewing those claims of, well, we're going to have to talk more with the Russians or find the diplomatic solutions, while they are sending sort of their troops to the borders near Russia. It just doesn't make any sense. At the same time, as this is taking place, you guys know what's taking place in Congress? No. Congress is preparing sanctions against Russia. It's kind of double standard. You are saying to Russians, sure, we'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you. But at the same time, you are preparing sanctions? Why should we trust you? Why should the Russians trust the Americans to ever negotiating in a good faith? It's kind of, this is where I always say that issue of credibility. Once you lose credibility, you're done. And U.S. credibility has been shattered. We all know. Look again what happened in Afghanistan. This is why right now you don't hear much about Taiwan, for example. Have you ever heard about Taiwan recently? No, because that train has left the station. All of a sudden now we've been hearing about Kazakhstan. And that's why I said for Kazakhstan, I believe it was a failed coup. Because you want to try to destabilize. Ross and I just did a video today. We're going to release it in a few days because it has to be edited and so forth. And Elizabeth is not available for about a week, so we're going to have some delay and some stuff. So we have some things to take care of. But we did record the video today, and we're going to release it soon. And we argued into that what took place in Kazakhstan was a plan to destabilize the area. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work because we saw what the Cooperation Security Organization did, and they managed and controlled the situation in Kazakhstan. Russia sent a battalion. Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan sent troops, and they took care of it. So China recently received a call from Kazakhstan for assistance. And China said, we'll be happy to assist you to the best of our capabilities. China, of course, is not going to send troops. It's not the policy of China to send troops. But China has an interest in ensuring that Kazakhstan is stable. And you guys know what that interest is? The BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, because Kazakhstan is at the heart of the Central Asia. As you may know, which we already talked about this in our last Friday live stream, Kazakhstan is located between Russia on the north and China on the east. So, once again, you have to understand the dynamics, the more pieces that not only when you see, for example, a talk in Brussels between NATO and Russia, you have to keep in mind some other moving parts elsewhere around the world, because it's like a puzzle that has to form together. So that is what's interesting about all this. And for me personally, and we wanted to help you guys in having a clear understanding in a simple language. I know sometimes those articles coming out of media outlets and analysis, whatever, use some high academic words, and all that doesn't mean a thing. If you can understand it in a basic language, it will make more sense to you. And this way, you will be able to draw your own conclusion. As we always say, we provide you the facts, we provide you the information to the best of our abilities and knowledge, and let you reach that conclusion. So it's very, very important that you have an understanding of that, because I am certain you're going to be hearing some news coming out of this meeting by tomorrow. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. It's a topic that I am very, very interested in. I wrote a book about Russia, so that was part of my research, my academic background, and so forth. So I am taking a great interest in following the developments, and will be happy to provide you break-ins about what's going on, and some brief analysis, so you can stay informed regarding that. So as I said, I will be doing more break-ins now that I learned how to manage this YouTube stuff. So I will be doing more of those break-ins, because I want to keep you informed. I want to keep you aware of what's going on. We'll be tackling, as always, different topics from around the world, because that's what we stand for. And at the same time, we will follow up with our live stream on Friday. So we're going to do that. So just remember to check us out at geopolitics.locals.com. We are on locals also. It's because you all know about how censorship is, so I don't need to beat the dead horse here. So and that's where another conversation that I have there. I'm also starting to do, by the way, just to share this with you, I've been invited now regularly on a Sputnik news outlet in Washington, D.C., where I provide them analysis about what's going on with NATO, Russia, US, and you name it. So make sure to listen to that. And once I get those recordings, I'll be happy to upload them on the channel, so you guys can listen to them if you want to as well. So what I was going to say is the idea also that make sure to check out our website at geopoliticsinconflict.com. That's for our membership there. So check it out and see. And just follow me on Twitter at @DWalalo. I usually post the stuff about what's going on. We have a great conversation over there. So that's all I have to say. And thank you guys for your support. I know it means a lot to us, all of us. We're working as hard as we can. A lot of people have no idea that it takes a lot of time to get all these pieces together, so we can come on the air, so we can share knowledge with you. Because I'm a believer, if I am to acquire knowledge, I don't keep it just for myself. I have to share it with everybody. I don't care where you come from. I don't care where you are. I don't care who you are. You are another human being to me, another human being that I can, help, that I can share knowledge with, that I can learn from. That's how I look at it. So this is my objective, and I'm sure Ross shared the same philosophy as well. So next time I'm going to have Ross with me here, and we're going to do a live break-ins together. So as I said again, I'm finding out all this here because Elizabeth is away. It's going to be away for a few weeks, and so we're going to manage a few things here, and we'll be fine. So I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday, and I hope till then, stay informed as always. See you guys. Bye-bye.